What a load of absolute twaddle. We have a lot of words for their lot of words where I come from. Twaddle, poppycock, flim flam, balderdash. Or remember the word that we are told a candidate who ran in the last presidential election in 2020 went around the country using malarkey. Malarkey was the word of Joe Biden's tour in 2020. Welcome back to the National Pulse after just so much talking. I'm frustrated watching it because I think about the time, and we'll keep the vote tally going on there next to me on screen, but I just think about the time that could have been spent on other things in the US Capitol today, in the militarized US Capitol today. I think about the checks that should be going out to ordinary Americans. I think about the legislative, the necessary legislative actions that this Congress should be taking right now, and instead, just this stream of bluster and grandstanding and bloviating. It's unconscionable to me that human beings could act this way towards other human beings. I don't mean towards Donald Trump. I mean towards the American people. To be continuing to drive a wedge and why? Why? Because they voted for somebody that the establishment doesn't like. Because they protested for somebody that the establishment doesn't like. Because they embraced a philosophy that is contrary to what the political class, the media class, the technology class has spent decades attempting to eradicate. Americans wanted one go at trying something different. Try not sending our children to war. Try looking after our towns and cities and municipalities and communities instead of the suburbs of Kabul. For once. But no, it ends like this. It ends like this. This is how they want this 4-year experiment of an America First policy schedule that brought peace to parts of the world that people thought there could never be peace in. That brought prosperity to parts of America that we were told could never be prosperous again. Remember, you don't have a magic wand, said Barack Obama, but surely enough. The economy under President Trump was, until the pandemic hit, ferocious, amazing, extraordinary. The magic wand was waved. I want to bring Thomas Farnan into the conversation here. Thomas is a great friend of this program and of the National Pulse website. He's the author of The Russia Lie, which you can still get on ebook for just $5 at therussialie.com. Thomas, you have a new article that I've been working on over the course of the last 45 minutes, thanks to the bloviating of the congressional members there. It's going up on the National Pulse shortly, and the headline is, "The media is lying about insurrection." Thomas, welcome back to the show. What does that mean?
It means that we spent the summer making a distinction between protest and riot. And if you said those rioters in the summer were the protesters were rioters, you were actually fact-checked. Most were in Washington last week to protest. And let's make that distinction. I don't know that that distinction was being made in Congress today, but that distinction has to be made.
Well, go ahead and make it, because I said this a week ago. I said last year you had people who were burning down private property, attacking people's homes, their cars, their businesses, the streets. There was at least according to the insurance industry, a $2 billion bill as a result of what happened last year. And by the way, none of that goes to excuse vandalism, violence, and aggression at the US Capitol. But what it is it's to put it all into perspective. And I said, hey, when it's done in people's neighborhoods, it's called majority peaceful protest. When it's done in the political establishment's neighborhood, it's called an insurrection, Tom.
Yes, I spent some time this year teaching constitutional law at one of the local universities. And the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, I'm going to read the words, guarantee people the right to peaceably assemble to petition the government for redress of grievances. Now, a lot of people came out of this election for very good reason, based on the statistical anomalies that you did such a great job reporting on, believing that something went wrong. We retrofitted the election process with mail-in ballots. The mail-in ballots went disproportionately for Joe Biden, and they came disproportionately out of certain Democrat-controlled precincts. And since November, a lot of people, tens of millions of people, have been begging to know what happened. Lawsuits were filed, but there aren't laws that have a remedy for private individuals or even campaigns to do something if they think something went wrong in an election like this. And most of those lawsuits were dismissed not on the merits. Those courts didn't look at the fraud and say there was no fraud here. Those courts dismissed them on procedural grounds. They said mostly that they didn't have standing. I think Texas made a very clever argument, but otherwise, and that case was dismissed on procedural grounds. So what is the constitutional remedy if you're one of the tens of millions of people and you think something went wrong in the election? The only thing the Constitution says about that is you can peaceably assemble to petition the government for redress of grievances. So the president invited people to Washington, D.C. on December 6th, and hundreds of thousands of really good people went. And their intention was to peaceably demonstrate. And he addressed that crowd, and he used the words peacefully. Let's do this peacefully. And as he was saying those words, at a geographic distance from where he was speaking, a crowd with much different intentions sought to breach the Capitol. We don't know what their motivations were. We know that some of them may have been Trump supporters. We know that some of them weren't. And I think you're leading the reporting there as well, Raheem.
Do I have to do everything, Tom?
But the distinction that has to be made is, okay, we have peaceful protesters in Washington talking about an election, and we have a riot at the Capitol. Can't we at least say that those peaceful protesters had a constitutional right to be there? And let's not use the riot, and I think this is what they're trying to do, let's not use the riot to have a chilling effect on that sort of protest. They have every right to be there. And I think they're trying to be, something is happening here where you're trying to scare those people. Washington is trying to scare those people out of stating their legitimate claims. And they're using the pretext of this rioting to do that. Now, that would all be a mush, and it would be hard to discern your way through, except just this summer, we had the same sort of thing happening. We had riots over Black Lives Matter riots, and we also had protests that were attached to those. And we had political leaders that made very clear distinctions between the protesting and the rioting, in the same way that President Trump is trying to make a distinction here. And if you didn't make that distinction, if you called a protester a rioter, and Kamala Harris said something on the Stephen Colbert show where she was encouraging the protests, and there was a little bit of a blowback, hey, she's encouraging rioting. And if you said that, and if you said it anywhere on the internet, you were fact-checked for that. So let's make those distinctions. Let's make a distinction between the rioting and the protesting, And let's stop using the power of government and this show of force. You know, we have the Joint Chiefs of Staff now writing something. Let's stop using this show of force to talk these peaceful people out of their right to protest. There are hundreds of thousands of them, and they did a nice job. Those people,
Tom, that goes back to one of the things I tweeted last week again, and I'll ask you this question. So can you just read that part of the Constitution again very quickly for us?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll wait for you to bring it up. Go ahead.
It's the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And you have the right, this is, lower in the clause, to peaceably assemble, to petition, the right of the people to peaceably assemble, to petition the government for redress of grievances.
Did Black Lives Matter petition the government to redress their grievances last year?
They could make the argument that that's what they were doing. They were gathering.
Right, but my point, the question, they did sometimes, right? They did sometimes. But burning down private property, is that petitioning the government?
No.
Right.
And we had an incident here. Here in Pittsburgh, we had one day of the Black Lives Matter protest. And it was mostly peaceful, but there were some agitators in the crowd that did some very bad things. And one kid caused a police car to be burned. And he encouraged others in the crowd to join him in that criminal act. And the mayor of Pittsburgh and the police chief of Pittsburgh got up and said, no, we're making a distinction here. There was a peaceful protest, and we support that protest. And we had outside agitators, we had rioters, and that kid who burned the police car is himself responsible. And even those among the peaceful rioters that he got to join him were not prosecuted. The prosecution was focused on him because we made this distinction between protest and rioting. We didn't have a Seattle situation here in Pittsburgh. It lasted a day or two, and it was over. And it truly was mostly peaceful, except for those incidents.
So Tom, look, I am kind of left speechless when I hear, and for the audience at home, they're counting the votes at the moment in the House there. So you're not missing any audio from there. Don't worry, we'll bring you anything that is actually active there in terms of conversation or chatter or more bloviating. But I am left kind of speechless by the sort of bluster that we heard in there, Tom. I know you were probably had to listen to it the same way I had to listen to it. It wasn't a choice for us in the last hour or so when sitting here, and you hear the conversation and the loftiness of the rhetoric coming from Democrats who are, very suddenly, by the way, despite, and I want to tell the audience this, despite you go online right now, you go on social media right now, you can find very far left-wing protesters screaming at Capitol Hill police right now, footage from today that is going on. I'm sure they're calling them Trump supporters and whatnot. But in the sort of 5 minutes we've got left here, we're doing a late handover here to David Brody in just a moment. But in the 5 minutes we've got left here, I want to address these things that they were saying in the chamber. They said that Donald Trump has built a glass palace of lies and sedition. Lies and sedition. And if the right were to use rhetoric like sedition to talk about what the left has done, for instance, with the Russia lie, something that you are all too familiar with, being the author of the best book, I think, on the market about this thing, The Russia Lie, we would have been called conspiracy theorists, and we were, nutcases, hooligans, you name it. They would have called us every single thing under the sun. Now they are laundering their lies through the United States Congress once again, militarizing the U.S. Capitol. We have loads more footage, by the way, that the Real America's Voice team has been out collecting this morning of what your nation's capital looks like. It looks like when I was in Kiev during the Maidan Revolution. I am not exaggerating. If anything, there's more here in terms of state security measures than there were during the Maidan Revolution in Kiev. That's what it looks like on the streets. It's sad. Tom, where and how? They're talking about, you look at this op-ed in Mediaite, and sorry to ramble on, but I've just got things occurring to me. You look at this op-ed in Mediaite today that says Republicans must admit that Biden won fair and square for the unity of the country. It's like a knife to your throat saying, hey, you better, it's a struggle session, right? You better do as we told you to say as we told you to say, do as we told you to do, or there will be no unity. It's not us. It's not us saying that. And it's also, Tom, not us making the farcical claim that at any point in the near future, this nation can be like Kumbaya united again. It's going to be a hard uphill task to get there. 3 minutes, back to you, Tom.
Well, I think one of the reasons for this political theater, the purpose of it, is to cause people where I live here in Pittsburgh to beat each other's throats. People are taking this very personally, and people are being egged on to take it personally, and I think primarily by the left. Somehow Donald Trump has been cast as some kind of demon. People are acting like he did something on Wednesday that personally hurt him. They're not making distinctions. They read what they do and for some reason don't make the same careful distinctions that we would make and that I think, the right more likely makes. But I think that's its purpose. And I think, cynically, that they would rather us be at each other's throats here in Pittsburgh than to be looking at them and their corruption. And I think one of the threats that Donald Trump made to Washington is he came to these places, these outlying counties near Pittsburgh, and he went to their high school gymnasiums and to their hockey rinks, and he addressed them. And he did quite well among minority voters in those neighborhoods and among Hispanic voters and among traditionally Democrat middle-class voters. And they can't have that. They need us to all be mad at each other.
Right.
And that's what this is all about.
Right. Thomas, wish we had more time to talk. I've already sort of made my way into David Brody's show by about 10 minutes, and now I'm sure he wants the microphone back. But I really thank you for joining us. You can get Thomas Farnham's book at therussialie.com. I also want you to look out Thomas's analysis. His article is going up on the National Pulse. It will be the lead story in about, I'm going to say 20-25 minutes. So set your watches by that. Tom, thanks for joining us here. He's so fantastic, so cogent, such a great legal mind as well. Tomorrow, pay very, very close attention. I want you to set an alarm. Tomorrow, watch the show, share it with your friends. We'll be airing new exclusive footage from here on Capitol Hill, what the scene looked like today. It's absolute madness out there. We also have some new investigative information that I'm still working on right now. Can't talk much more about it, but about the protest, who is behind it, where these people might be hiding out in Washington, D.C. While all this is going along. We're following a lot of scoops here down this ridiculous rabbit hole of nonsense that we're hearing about protests being, MAGA people being rioters and all sorts of things. Watch out for that tomorrow. We're going to break news here live on the show. In the meantime, head on over to nationalpulse.com/support. Help support our work. Stick around. David Brody is up next.